The Galactic Union Council chamber was filled with voices of anger and fear. Representatives from 200 species argued across the vast, circular room. Their translators created a storm of sound that echoed off the crystal walls. Ambassador Thelvraxa stood at her station and watched the chaos. Her silver skin reflected the dim lights above. She had served the Union for 30 years. But she had never seen the Council like this. They were desperate. "Another colony has gone silent," announced the Council speaker. His voice cut through the noise. "That makes 17 worlds in 3 months. We have no explanation. No enemy has claimed responsibility." The chamber erupted again. Some demanded military action. Others called for investigation. A few suggested retreat from the affected sectors. Thelvraxa closed her 4 eyes and felt tired. The Union was falling apart, and no one knew how to stop it. The meeting ended with no solutions. Thelvraxa returned to her quarters and pulled up the reports she had been studying in secret. For weeks, she had noticed something strange. In regions far from the chaos, conflicts were ending. Trade disputes resolved themselves. Border wars stopped without treaties. Someone was fixing problems, but no one was taking credit. She traced the patterns on her holographic display. Every resolution pointed toward the same direction. The dead sectors. Everyone knew those regions were empty. The Union had declared them worthless 300 years ago. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. But Thelvraxa wondered if everyone was wrong. She thought back to her history lessons. 3 centuries ago, the Union had made first contact with humans, the species from a world called Earth. They were young, energetic, and emotional. Too emotional, the Council had decided. Humans felt things too deeply. They made decisions from their hearts instead of logic. They were unpredictable and dangerous. The vote had been unanimous. Exile the humans to the dead sectors. Let them fade away in the empty darkness. It was safer for everyone. Thelvraxa had always felt uncomfortable with that decision. She was young then, not yet in the diplomatic service. But something about it seemed wrong. The humans had done nothing truly harmful. They were just different. Now she stared at her data and wondered, could humans have survived? The dead sectors were supposed to be impossible to inhabit. No resources, no habitable worlds, nothing but empty space and dying stars. But what if the Union had been wrong about that too? She made a decision. Without telling the Council, she took her personal ship and set course for the dead sectors. It would take 3 days to reach the border, 3 days to find out if she was chasing shadows or something real. The journey was quiet. Thelvraxa spent hours reviewing everything she could find about humans. There was not much. After the exile, the Union had erased most records. It was as if humans had never existed. Only old archives remained, buried deep in historical databases. She found images of humans. They looked fragile. Soft skin, small frames, no natural weapons. But their eyes showed something else. Intelligence, determination, fire. One old report caught her attention. It was written by a Union observer who had visited Earth before the exile. The observer wrote, "Humans possess a remarkable quality. When faced with impossible situations, they do not accept defeat. They adapt. They find ways to survive that no other species would consider. This makes them unpredictable. This makes them dangerous." Thelvraxa read those words again and again. Adapt. Survive. What if humans had done exactly that? On the 3rd day, her ship crossed into the dead sectors. Her sensors showed exactly what she expected. Empty space. No signals. No life signs. She felt foolish for coming. Then her communication system crackled. It was not random noise. It was a signal. Faint, but deliberate. She adjusted her receivers and listened carefully. The signal was in an old language, a human language. Her heart beat faster. She followed the signal deeper into the dead sectors. Her sensors began picking up other things. Energy readings, ship trails, structure signatures. None of it matched any known faction in the Union. She traveled for another day. The signals grew stronger. Then, her viewport filled with light. Ahead of her was a station. A massive station that should not exist. It hung in space like a small moon, covered in lights and docking ports. Ships moved around it in organized patterns. Thelvraxa could not believe what she was seeing. The station was active, thriving, and the ship designs were unlike anything in Union space. They were efficient and practical, built for function rather than status. They reminded her of the old images she had seen of human vessels. She intercepted a communication between two ships. The language was human. The words were clear. They mentioned the Council, and the next mediation assignment, and keeping the sectors stable. Thelvraxa felt her entire understanding of the galaxy shift. Humans had not died. They had not faded into nothing. They had survived. More than survived. They had built something new. Her hands trembled as she recorded everything. This was impossible. The Union had abandoned humans to die. How had they created this? What else had they built in 300 years? She knew she should return to Union space immediately, report her findings, but she had to know more. She had to understand what humans had become. As she moved closer to the station, her ship was suddenly surrounded by 3 vessels. They had appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems far beyond Union technology. A voice spoke, in perfect Union standard. Ambassador Thelvraxa. We have been expecting you. We have watched your investigation with interest. If you wish to understand what you have found, we invite you to dock. The Council would like to speak with you. Thelvraxa stared at her communication panel. They knew her name. They had been watching her. The humans had been watching everything. She made her choice. She accepted the invitation. As her ship was guided into the docking bay, she realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. The species the Union had thrown away had been working in the shadows all along, and now she would learn why. The docking bay was clean and organized. Thelvraxa stepped off her ship and found herself facing 3 humans. They wore simple uniforms marked with a symbol she did not recognize. 2 overlapping circles. They smiled at her. The gesture looked friendly. "Welcome, Ambassador," said the woman in the center. She was tall with dark hair. "My name is Kim Da-un. I lead the Mediation Corps. These are my colleagues. We will take you to High Coordinator Park Jinseo." Thelvraxa followed them through corridors that hummed with activity. She saw dozens of species. Not just humans. There were Korvathi like herself, Thisians, Velkari, even some species she did not recognize. They all worked together, moving with purpose. "I do not understand," Thelvraxa said. "How is this possible? The Union said these sectors were dead." Kim Da-un smiled again. The Union never looked closely. They assumed these sectors were worthless because the stars were old and the planets were harsh. But humans learned something important during our exile. Harsh does not mean impossible. It just means you have to work harder. They entered a large room with windows showing the space outside. A man stood looking at the stars. He turned when they entered. He had gentle eyes and gray hair at his temples. "Ambassador Thelvraxa," he said. "I am Park Jinseo. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Thelvraxa sat in the offered chair. Her mind was full of questions. Park Jinseo sat across from her and folded his hands. "I know you have many questions," he said. "Let me answer the most important one first. Yes, we are humans. Yes, we survived the exile. And yes, we have been watching the Galactic Union for 300 years. Watching?" Thelvraxa repeated. "Why? Why not reveal yourselves?" Park Jinseo looked sad for a moment. "Because we learned a hard lesson. The Union exiled us because we were different. because our emotions made them uncomfortable. We could have spent centuries being angry. We could have planned revenge. But we chose a different path. He activated a holographic display. Images filled the air between them. Thelvraxa saw conflicts, negotiations, peace agreements. Hundreds of them. For 300 years, we have been helping. Park Jin-seo continued. We created the Hidden Council. We built networks across the galaxy. We watch for conflicts before they become wars. We mediate disputes before they destroy civilizations. We work in the shadows, and we never take credit. Thelvraxa stared at the images. She recognized some of these events. The Thyssian-Velkari border dispute that ended peacefully 5 years ago. The Korvathi Civil War that resolved without bloodshed. The trade crisis in the Outer Rim that somehow fixed itself. This was all you? She asked. Kim Da-eun stepped forward. We have 7 teams working across the galaxy at any time. We do not force solutions. We do not impose our will. We simply help species find their own answers. We ask questions. We create dialogue. We show them common ground they could not see through their anger. Another man entered the room. He was younger with sharp eyes. High Coordinator. The Observer Network has new reports. Thank you, Lee Min-jun. Park Jin-seo said. He looked at Thelvraxa. Min-jun leads our Observer Network. We monitor every sector of the galaxy. We see patterns that others miss. Thelvraxa felt overwhelmed. Why are you telling me this? Why reveal yourselves now? Park Jin-seo's expression became serious. Because the galaxy faces a threat that we cannot fight alone. And because the Union needs to know the truth before it is too late. He changed the holographic display. New images appeared. Dark regions of space. Ships with strange designs. Colonies that had vanished. For 80 years, we have been fighting an enemy in the darkness, Park Jin-seo said. They are called the Zalkaresh. They are a species that feeds on chaos and conflict. They infiltrate societies. They create division. They turn species against themselves. Then, when civilizations are weak and broken, they consume them. Thelvraxa felt cold. The colonies that have gone silent. The conflicts in Union space. This is them? Yes, Lee Min-jun said. We have been containing them in the outer dark for decades. But they are breaking through our containment. They are moving toward Union space. Everything happening in the Union right now, the chaos, the conflicts. That is Zalkaresh. Manipulation. Thelvraxa stood up. The Union needs to know this immediately. We agree, Park Jin-seo said. That is why we revealed ourselves to you. You have been searching for answers. You followed the patterns. You came here with an open mind. We believe you can convince the Council to listen. Kim Da-eun approached Thelvraxa. Before you return, we want to show you something. Come with me. They took Thelvraxa to a shuttle and flew to a nearby sector. There, 2 species were preparing for war. Their fleets faced each other across a disputed border. Thelvraxa could see the tension even from a distance. The Pirani and the Solth, Kim Da-eun explained. They have been enemies for 50 years. Border skirmishes, trade sanctions, propaganda. Now they are ready to kill each other. But watch. Kim Da-eun and her team approached both sides separately. They did not arrive in warships. They came in small civilian vessels. They did not demand meetings. They asked for permission to talk. Thelvraxa watched for 3 days. Kim Da-eun never told either species what to do. She asked questions. What do you really want? What does your enemy want? Is there a way both sides can achieve their goals? She brought representatives from both sides together, not to negotiate, but to simply talk as individuals. Slowly, things changed. The Pirani and Solth discovered they had been manipulated. False information had been fed to both sides. Old grudges had been deliberately inflamed. When they saw the truth, they saw each other differently. On the 4th day, both fleets withdrew. Peace talks began. No treaty was signed. No human took credit. Both species believed they had solved the problem themselves. "This is what we do," Kim Do-yoon said quietly. "We do not save the galaxy. We help the galaxy save itself." Thelvraxa returned to the hidden council station. Park Jin-so gave her data files. Evidence of 200 prevented wars. 50 stopped genocides. 12 species saved from extinction. All human interventions that the Union never knew about. "Take this to your council," Park Jin-seo said. "Tell them the truth. Humans did not die in exile. We grew. We learned. We became what the galaxy needed, even if the galaxy did not know it needed us." Thelvraxa looked at the data in her hands. "They may not believe me. Many will reject help from the species they exiled. We know," Park Jin-seo said. "But the Zalkaresh are coming. Pride will not stop them. The Union must choose. Stand with us, or fall alone." Thelvraxa boarded her ship and began the journey back to Union space. Her mind was full of everything she had learned. The galaxy she thought she knew was completely different. Humans had been the invisible hands keeping everything stable. And now, an enemy was coming that would test everyone. The Galactic Union Council chamber had never been so quiet. Thelvraxa stood at the central platform and watched 200 species stare at her in disbelief. She had just told them everything. About humans. About the hidden council. About the Zalkaresh. "This is impossible," said Council Speaker Vex Halar. "Humans could not have survived. We sent them to empty sectors." Thelvraxa played the recordings she had made. The hidden council station. The human fleets. The mediation. Operations. The evidence was clear and undeniable. "They not only survived," Thelvraxa said. "They thrived. While we believed them dead, they have been protecting the galaxy. 40% of our peaceful resolutions in the last century were their work." The chamber erupted. Some delegates shouted in anger. Others demanded proof. A few sat in stunned silence. The Thyssian representative stood up. "If this is true, why did they hide? Why not return to the Union?" "Because we exiled them," Thelvraxa said simply. "We told them they were too dangerous to exist among us. They learned to help us anyway. But from the shadows, where we could not reject them again." A Velkari delegate spoke. "And this enemy? The Zalkaresh? Why have we never heard of them?" "Because humans have been fighting them for 80 years. Thelvraxa replied. "In the outer dark, where no one looks. They have been protecting us without our knowledge." She showed them Lee Min-jun's data. The pattern was clear. Every recent conflict in Union space showed signs of Zalkaresh manipulation. Corrupted officials. False intelligence. Manufactured grievances. The enemy had been working within Union space for months, maybe years. Council Speaker Vex Halar looked at the data for a long time. "If this is true, we are already at war. We are fighting ourselves while the real enemy watches." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A communication officer ran in, his face pale. "A fleet has appeared at Vex Halar. Thousands of ships, unknown design. They are attacking the colony." The council moved immediately. Every available Union ship was ordered to Vex Halar. It was one of their core worlds, home to billions. Thelvraxa felt her heart's pounding. The Zalkaresh had made their move. She ran to her ship and followed the Union fleet. The journey to Vex Halar took 6 hours. When they arrived, the battle had already begun. The sight made Thelvraxa feel sick. The Zalkaresh ships were dark and organic-looking. They moved in perfect coordination. But the worst part was what they did to Union ships. Some Union vessels were firing on each other. Crews were fighting themselves. The Zalkaresh were not just attacking, they were corrupting. "They are using psychological warfare," transmitted a Union commander. "Something in their signals. It is turning crews against their officers. We cannot trust our own people." The Union fleet was falling apart. Ships broke formation. Communication channels filled with screaming and confusion. The Zalkaresh advanced steadily, destroying everything in their path. Then space rippled. New ships appeared. Hundreds of them. They bore the symbol Thelvraxa had seen on the hidden council station. 2 overlapping circles. Human ships had arrived. A voice broadcast on all channels. It was Park Jin-so. Attention all Union forces. This is High Coordinator Park Jin-so, of the Hidden Council. We know you have questions. We know some of you do not trust us. But right now, we must fight together or die separately. We have fought the Zalkaresh for 80 years. We know their tactics. Follow our lead. The human fleet moved with practiced precision. They did not attack recklessly. Instead, they created defensive formations around Union ships. They protected the vessels that were still under control, while Union crews dealt with the corrupted members. Kim Da-eun's voice came through on Thelvraxa's communicator. Ambassador, we are sending specialists to Union command ships. They will teach your commanders how to resist Zalkaresh influence. Do we have permission to board? Thelvraxa looked at the chaos around her. Union ships were dying. They needed help. Yes. Permission granted. Within minutes, human teams were boarding Union vessels. They did not take control. They advised. They showed Union officers how to identify corrupted crew members. They taught techniques to maintain mental clarity. They shared everything they had learned in 80 years of fighting this enemy. Lee Min-jun's observer network fed real-time intelligence to all Allied forces. His teams tracked every Zalkaresh movement. They predicted attack patterns. They found weaknesses in enemy formations. The information flowed to both human and Union commanders. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Union crews regained control of their ships. The fleet reformed. With human ships protecting them and human intelligence guiding them, the Union forces fought back effectively. The battle lasted for 18 hours. When it ended, the Zalkaresh fleet retreated. They were not destroyed, but they were driven back. Vex Halar was saved. The colony survived, but the cost was high. Dozens of Union ships were destroyed. Thousands of lives lost. The survivors floated in space, exhausted and traumatized. Park Jin-so's ship docked with the Union command vessel. He walked through the corridors with Kim Da-eun and Lee Min-jun. Union officers stared at them. Some looked grateful. Others looked angry. All looked uncertain. The Union High Command waited in the war room. Park Jin-seo entered and stood before them. They studied each other in silence. You have questions, Park Jin-seo said. Ask them. The Union Fleet Admiral spoke first. Why did you hide? For 300 years, you let us believe you were dead. Why? Park Jin-seo met his gaze. Because we were exiled. You said we were too dangerous to exist among you. We could have tried to return, tried to prove ourselves, but we were afraid you would reject us again. So, we found another way. We helped you, without asking for recognition. You manipulated us, said another commander. You interfered in our affairs without permission. We prevented wars, Kim Da-eun replied calmly. We saved lives. We never forced anyone to do anything. We simply helped species find peaceful solutions. If that is manipulation, then we are guilty. The fleet admiral looked at his colleagues. And the Zalkaresh? You fought them alone for 80 years. Why not warn us? Lee Min-jun stepped forward. We tried to contain them. We hoped to stop them before they reached Union space. We failed. They broke through our lines. We should have warned you sooner. That mistake is ours, Thelvraxa spoke up. The Hidden Council saved Vex Halar today. Without them, we would have lost millions. They have been saving us for centuries. The question now is not why they hid. The question is what we do next. The room was silent. Everyone knew she was right. The Zalkaresh threat was real. The Union could not fight them alone. Park Jin-soo spoke again. We do not ask for forgiveness. We do not demand membership in the Union. We only ask for partnership. Let us fight together. Share intelligence. Coordinate defenses. We have knowledge of the enemy. You have resources and numbers. Together, we can survive. Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded. Lee Min-jun checked his datapad. His face went pale. High Coordinator. New signals from deep space. Multiple Zalkaresh hives are awakening. This fleet was not their main force. It was a probe. He projected the data for everyone to see. Hundreds of Zalkaresh clusters, each one containing thousands of ships. They were spread across the dark regions beyond known space, and they were all beginning to move. The Union commanders stared at the data in horror. The battle they just fought was nothing. The real war had not even started yet. Park Jin-seo looked at them all. Now you see what we have been facing. Alone, neither humans nor the Union can survive this. But together, we have a chance. So, I ask again, will you fight with us? The fleet admiral looked at his colleagues. Then he looked at Park Jin-seo. Slowly, he nodded. The war room of the Union command station had become a place of constant activity. Human and Union officers worked side by side at control panels. Holographic displays showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated Zalkaresh movements. Blue markers showed Allied positions. There were far more red than blue. Park Jin-seo stood at the center of the room with Fleet Admiral Korthan. They had been planning defenses for 3 days without rest. Every hour brought new reports of Zalkaresh attacks. They are testing us, Lee Min-jun said, pointing at the display. Small strikes across dozens of sectors. They want to see how we respond. They want to learn our tactics. Then we teach them the wrong lessons. Admiral Korthan replied. He was a large Thisian with scales that changed color with his emotions. Right now, they showed determination. We make them think we are weaker than we are. Kim Da-eun entered the room with a group of Union diplomats. Over the past days, she had been training them in human methods of conflict resolution, not for negotiating with the Zalkaresh, but for keeping the Union itself from fracturing under pressure. How are the cultural integration programs going? Park Jin-seo asked her. Slowly, Kim Da-eun admitted. Many species still do not trust us. 3 Union worlds have refused to accept human advisors. They say they would rather fight alone than accept help from exiles. End quote. Park Jin-seo nodded. He had expected this. 300 years of separation could not be healed in days. We cannot force them. We can only prove ourselves through action. An alarm sounded. A new attack was beginning at Sector 47, a Union colony world with limited defenses. Both human and Union ships moved to intercept. Thelvraxa monitored the battle from her station. She had become an unofficial liaison between the two forces. She understood both cultures now. She could translate not just words, but intentions. The battle at Sector 47 was different from Vex Halar. This time, the Union forces knew what to expect. They had learned from human training. When Zalkaresh ships began broadcasting their corruption signals, Union crews were ready. They isolated affected personnel. They maintained unit cohesion. They fought smart instead of fighting afraid. The human fleet provided support. But they did not take over. They let Union forces lead. They only intervened when necessary. It was important that the Union learned to fight this enemy themselves. After 6 hours, the Zalkaresh fleet withdrew. The colony was saved with minimal losses. The Union crews celebrated. They had won without falling apart. They had proven they could stand against this enemy. But Park Jin-seo knew the truth. These were still just probing attacks. The real invasion had not begun. He called a meeting with the Union Council. It was time to be honest about what was coming. The council chamber was full when he arrived. 200 species, all looking at him with different emotions. Fear, hope, suspicion, anger. Park Jin-seo walked to the central platform. He did not bring guards. He did not bring weapons. He brought only the truth. Members of the Galactic Union, he began. I stand before you as the representative of humanity. The species you exiled 300 years ago. I do not come to ask for apology. I do not come to demand justice for old wrongs. I come to speak about survival. He activated the holographic display. The galaxy appeared, marked with thousands of red indicators. The Zalkaresh are not a single empire. They are a plague. They have consumed entire regions of space beyond your maps. For 80 years, humanity fought them alone. We held them back in the darkness. We kept them from reaching you, but we could not stop them forever. The red markers began to move on the display. Projections showed the invasion paths. Hundreds of worlds would be attacked. Billions would die. You face an enemy that does not want your territory. They do not want treaties. They do not want resources. They want chaos. They feed on conflict and division. They will turn you against yourselves, and then they will consume what remains. The chamber was silent. Every species understood what this meant. Park Jin-seo continued. My people learned something during our exile. We learned that survival requires letting go of pride. It requires accepting help, even from those who wronged us. It requires unity, even when unity is difficult. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of different delegates. You exiled us because we were too emotional, because we were unpredictable, because we were different. Perhaps you were right, we are emotional. That is why we could not abandon you to this enemy, even after you threw us away. We are unpredictable. That is why we found ways to survive that you did not think possible. We are different. That is why we can teach you things you need to know. A Korvathi delegate stood up. What are you asking from us? Partnership, Park Jin-seo said simply. Not membership in the Union. Not control. Just partnership. Let us share everything we know. Let us train your forces. Let us coordinate our defenses. In return, we ask for recognition, not as your saviors, just as equals. The Velkari representative spoke next. And if we refuse? What will humans do? Park Jin-seo was quiet for a moment. We will fight anyway. We will protect the galaxy because that is what we do. But we will do it less effectively. More will die. More worlds will fall. Park Jin-seo, weak, Anwan, accident, the choice is yours. The debate lasted for hours. Some species supported the proposal immediately. Others argued against it. A few demanded impossible conditions. But slowly, a consensus formed. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. Some species still voted against humanity. But the majority voted yes. The partnership was approved. Thelvraxa felt relief wash through her. She had worked so hard to make this happen. She had argued, negotiated, and pleaded. Now, finally, both sides would work together openly, but there was no time to celebrate. Lee Min-jun burst into the chamber. His face showed panic. Zalkaresh main fleet detected. They are moving toward Union core sectors. Estimated arrival in 48 hours. Fleet size. He paused, checking his data again, as if he could not believe it. Over 3,000 capital ships. Tens of thousands of support vessels. This is their full invasion force. The chamber erupted in noise. 3,000 ships. The Union had never faced a fleet that large. Even with human support, the odds were terrible. Park Jin-seo raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke with calm certainty. 48 hours. That gives us time. Admiral Korthan, begin evacuating civilian populations from the projected impact zones. Kim Da-eun, Work with Union diplomats to keep member species coordinated. We cannot afford internal conflicts right now. Lee Min-jun, I need complete intelligence on enemy fleet composition and likely strategies. He turned to the Council. Every species must contribute. Every ship. Every resource. This is not just humanity's war or the Union's war. This is the galaxy's war. Either we stand together or we fall separately. The Thyssian delegate stood. My people will commit our entire defense fleet. The Korvathi delegate followed. As will we. One by one, species pledged their forces. Even those who had voted against the partnership contributed. The threat was too great for pride. Park Jin-seo watched this with quiet satisfaction. This was what the galaxy needed. Not one species dominating others. Not separation and suspicion. But unity in the face of darkness. He left the chamber and returned to the war room. Kim Da-yoon and Lee Min-jun were already there. They looked tired, but determined. Can we win? Kim Da-eun asked quietly. Park Jin-seo looked at the display showing the incoming Zalkaresh fleet. I do not know. But we will fight. And we will fight together. That is all we can do. Admiral Korthan entered. His scales showed the deep blue of complete focus. All fleets are moving to defensive positions. We have 41 hours until contact. What are your orders? Park Jin-seo studied the map. He thought about everything humanity had learned in 300 years of exile. They had learned to survive. They had learned to adapt. They had learned to never give up. We do what humans do best, he said. We find a way. The combined fleet assembled at the Corrales line. It was the last major defensive position before the Union core worlds. Over 1,500 ships from 200 species floated in formation. Human vessels mixed with Union ships. For the first time in 3 centuries, they fought as one. Park Jin-seo stood on the bridge of the human flagship. Around him, officers from different species worked together. A Korvathi tactical officer shared a console with a human analyst. A Thyssian engineer helped a human technician optimize shield systems. The bridge was a symbol of what the galaxy could be. Enemy fleet detected, Lee Min-jun announced. Distance, 2 million kilometers. They will be in weapons range in 40 minutes. Through the viewports, space itself seemed to darken. The Zalkaresh fleet was massive, thousands upon thousands of ships, moving like a swarm of insects. They did not travel in neat formations like civilized species. They moved as one organism, flowing and shifting. Admiral Korthan stood beside Park Jin-seo. I have fought in many battles. I have never seen anything like this. Neither have we, Park Jin-seo admitted. Every time we fought them, they adapted. They learn. They change. This will not be like the other battles. Kim Da-eun entered the bridge. All crew members have completed the mental resilience training. Communication channels have backup protocols. If the Zalkaresh try their corruption tactics, we are ready. Thel Vraxa monitored the fleet communications. She could hear the voices of hundreds of captains. Some were afraid. Some were angry. All were determined. The galaxy had never been this united. 30 minutes to contact, Lee Min-jun said. Park Jin-seo opened a fleet-wide channel. His voice reached every ship, every crew member, every species. This is High Coordinator Park Jin-seo. In a few minutes, we will face an enemy that wants to destroy everything we have built. They believe we are weak because we are divided. They think our differences make us vulnerable. They are wrong. He paused, choosing his words carefully. 300 years ago, humanity was cast out. We were told we did not belong. We could have become bitter. We could have let that rejection break us. Instead, we learned. We grew. We found purpose in protecting those who had hurt us. On screens across the fleet, species watched and listened. They saw a human who had every reason to hate them, but who chose to stand with them instead. Today, humans and the Union fight together, not because we forgot the past, but because we choose the future. The Zalkaresh want us to fight each other. They want us to fail. So we will prove them wrong. We will show them what unity looks like. The fleet responded with a roar of approval. Voices in 100 languages, all saying the same thing. Together, 10 minutes to contact. The Zalkaresh fleet began to change formation. They split into dozens of smaller groups, each targeting a different section of the defensive line. It was a tactic designed to overwhelm and confuse, but Lee Min-jun had predicted this. His observer network had studied Zalkaresh patterns for decades. He transmitted new orders. The Allied fleet split to match the enemy, maintaining defensive positions while creating overlapping fields of fire. 5 minutes. Kim Da-eun activated the psychological defense protocols. Across the fleet, crews began mental exercises. They reminded themselves of who they were. They connected with their shipmates. They built mental walls against the corruption that was coming. Enemy entering weapons range. 3 minutes. Park Jin-seo looked at Admiral Corthan. Your people and mine, fighting together. I never thought I would see this day. Corthan's scales shifted to show respect. Humanity earned this. Not through demands, through action, through sacrifice. If we survive this battle, the galaxy will remember. 1 minute to contact. The Zalkaresh fleet suddenly accelerated. They rushed forward in a wave of darkness. Their ships began broadcasting the corruption signals. Across the Allied fleet, crew members felt the pressure in their minds. Whispers of doubt, suggestions of betrayal, memories of old grudges, but the training held. Crews supported each other. They talked through the fear. They reminded each other of the truth. The corruption found no grip. All ships, fire at will. Space lit up with weapons fire, energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds. The Allied fleet unleashed everything they had. The Zalkaresh ships absorbed the damage and returned fire. Their weapons were strange, pulsing with dark energy that corroded shields faster than normal weapons. The battle became chaos. Ships dodged and weaved. Formations broke and reformed. Lee Min-jun coordinated everything, feeding intelligence to fleet commanders. He identified weak points in enemy clusters. He predicted attack patterns. He kept the Allies one step ahead. Kim Da-eun's teams worked constantly to maintain crew morale. When ships were damaged, when friends died, when hope seemed lost, she was there with words of encouragement. She reminded them why they fought. She kept the fleet unified. Hours passed. The battle raged. Ships from both sides were destroyed. The space between the fleets became a graveyard of debris. But the Allied line held. The Zalkaresh could not break through. Then the enemy changed tactics. They stopped attacking the military ships. Instead, they turned toward the civilian evacuation routes. Millions of refugees were fleeing the core worlds. The Zalkaresh moved to intercept them. They are targeting civilians, Lee Min-jun reported, his voice tight with anger. Park Jin-seo made a decision. All human ships, break formation. Protect the evacuation routes. We cannot let them reach those people. Admiral Corthan looked at him. If you leave the line, the center will weaken. I know, Park Jin-seo said. But this is what humans do. We protect the innocent, even if it costs us everything. The human fleet disengaged and raced toward the evacuation routes. They positioned themselves between the Zalkaresh and the civilian ships. They were outnumbered, but they did not hesitate. For a moment, the Union fleet stood alone at the defensive line. Then Admiral Corthan spoke into his communicator. All Union ships. The humans go to protect our families. They sacrifice their position to save our people. We will not let them stand alone. Half the fleet. Follow the humans. The rest. Hold this line. The Union fleet split. Thousands of ships followed the human vessels. They arrived just as the Zalkaresh reached the evacuation routes. The battle became desperate. Ships rammed each other. Close-range weapons fire lit up the darkness. But the civilians escaped. Every refugee ship made it to safety. The cost was high. Dozens of ships were destroyed. Hundreds died. But not a single civilian vessel was lost. The Zalkaresh fleet seemed to hesitate. For the first time, they had encountered something they did not understand. Species sacrificing themselves for others. Unity stronger than their corruption. It did not fit their pattern. They began to withdraw. Slowly at first, then faster. The Allied fleet did not pursue. They were too damaged, too exhausted. But they had won. The invasion was stopped. Park Jin-seo watched the enemy retreat. He felt tired, beyond measure. Around him, the bridge crew celebrated quietly. They had survived. 1 month later, the Galactic Union held a ceremony. Every species sent representatives. The location was significant. The border of the dead sectors. The place where humanity had been exiled. A monument was built there. It was a simple structure of metal and stone. On it were inscribed the names of everyone who died in the battle. Human and Union names together. No separation. Park Jin-seo stood before the monument with Thelvraxa and Admiral Korthan. Behind them, representatives from 200 species gathered. The Union Council speaker approached. High Coordinator Park Jin-seo. The Galactic Union formally apologizes for the exile of humanity. We were wrong. We judged you for being different, when your differences were exactly what we needed. Park Jin-seo nodded slowly. We accept your apology, but we do not forget what happened. The exile taught us important lessons. It made us who we are. The council speaker continued. The Union proposes a new structure. 2 councils, working as equals. The Inner Council, the traditional Union, and the Outer Council, led by humanity. Together, you will be the complete Galactic Council. Kim Da-yoon stepped forward. We accept, but we have conditions. The Outer Council will continue to work as we always have. We will mediate. We will resolve conflicts. We will operate sometimes in the shadows. This is our way. Agreed, the council speaker said. The galaxy needs both light and shadow, both structure and flexibility, both tradition and innovation. A new emblem was unveiled, 2 circles, overlapping. One represented the ancient Union. One represented humanity's hidden council. Not one above the other. Side by side. Equal. Lee Min-jun addressed the crowd. The Zalkaresh are not destroyed. They are contained, but not defeated. They will return. When they do, we will be ready. Because now, we fight as one. Thelvraxa felt tears in her eyes. She had helped build this. A galaxy that was broken was now healing. Species that were divided were now united. And humanity, the species that had every reason to turn away, had chosen to save everyone. Park Jin-seo looked at the monument one last time. All those names, all those sacrifices. He spoke quietly, but everyone heard. We were exiled because you feared what made us different. You thought our emotions were weakness. Our unpredictability was dangerous. Our compassion was foolish. But those differences were not flaws. They were missing pieces. He turned to face the assembled species. Your structure needed our flexibility. Your logic needed our emotion. Your caution needed our courage. Alone, both humans and the Union would have fallen. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. The ceremony ended. Species mingled and talked. Old enemies became new allies. Understanding replaced fear. It would take time, years, maybe decades. But the path was clear. As the crowd dispersed, Kim Da-eun stood with Park Jin-seo. Do you think it will last? This unity? Park Jin-seo watched humans and aliens working together, laughing together, planning together. I think we have given them a chance. The rest is up to them. And to us, in orbit above, human and Union ships patrolled together. On the surface, the monument stood as a reminder, not of exile, not of rejection, but of redemption, of choice, of unity forged in fire. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. The species they threw away became the species that saved them. And humanity had learned something too. That exile could not break them. That rejection could not stop them. That even in darkness, they could find light. Together, they would face whatever came next. Not as exiles and empire, but as partners, as equals, as one galaxy, united at last.